Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. So tonight we're going to do halacha. Last year, we were able to have 3 weeks, one for Rosh Hashanah, one for Yom Kippur, one for Sukkot. Tonight, we're going to have to try to accomplish Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. So we're going to go through, practical things that people need to know, especially this year where Yom Tov is Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. So there are certain laws that people will need to do. By the way, if anybody wants to get, it's not officially out yet, but the halacha newsletter that I give out for Tishrei or the other Yom Tov of the year, you can go on jewishbeverlyhills.com and it should be there one of these days. Okay, anyway, so this year, because Rosh Hashanah is Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos, so Erev Rosh Hashanah, which is this year, Wednesday, you need to make what's called Erev Tafshilin. Erev Tafshilin means you take a food, you take a challah that's at least 2 ounces, and you take a prominent food like chicken, meat, fish, eggs, the size of an ounce, and you pick them up, and there's a bracha that you make, what's called for Erev Tafshilin. Now, what is this concept of Erev Tafshilin? So then is, and this applies, by the way, explaining it now because it applies Erev Rosh Hashanah, Erev Sukkot, and Erev Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, because here everything's Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. So on Wednesday, before Rosh Hashanah, Wednesday before Sukkot, and Wednesday before Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, you need to do this process of Erev Tavshilin. The din is as follows, in a very brief nutshell. You're not allowed to cook from one day Yom Tov to the next. You can only cook on Yom Tov for Yom Tov. You cannot prepare on one day for the next day. Okay? So now, how are you going to cook for Shabbos? How are you going to cook? Friday is Yom Tov. You can't cook even for Shabbos because you can only cook on Yom Tov for that particular day. So what do you do? So the Chacham said like this. Biblically, if somebody cooks on Friday, and the food technically would be edible on Friday, and maybe guests will come and you'll have what to feed them, biblically you would be allowed to do that. In other words, Friday morning I'd be allowed to cook extra. Why? Because maybe guests will come on Friday afternoon and they want to eat, so I'll feed them. Rabbinically, you're not allowed to do that. So therefore, the Chacham and the Rabbi said like this. If you prepare cooking out of Yom Tov, let's say this here Wednesday, and you prepare by taking baked challah, or the main thing is cooked food also, and you make a bracha, and you say with this, I'm beginning to cook already. I'm beginning to cook for Shabbos on Friday. On Wednesday. Therefore, the Chachamim allowed you to go back to the biblical law that you could cook extra on Friday because maybe guests will be coming on Friday to eat and you'll have what to feed them. So therefore, there's 2 very important things. Number 1, the Erev Tavshilin food must remain intact until Shabbos. If somebody by mistake ate not the challah, we're not worried about so much. But if somebody ate up the fish or the egg or whatever you use as the food, and somebody by mistake ate it on Thursday or on Friday morning before you cook for Shabbos, you're stuck. You cannot cook on Friday for Shabbos because you don't have the Erev Tavshilin. The Erev Tavshilin must be kept intact until Friday night. Okay, until Friday night. Number 2, the food that you're cooking for Shabbos, must be edible on Friday, which means you cannot put up a cholent right before Shabbos. In order to cook on Friday for Shabbos, all the food that you're cooking on Friday for Shabbos must be edible on Friday, because the whole purpose of the leniency is maybe guests will come and you'll have what to feed them. But if it's not going to be edible on Friday, then the whole heter, the whole permissibility doesn't exist. So you make the Erev Tavshil, number one, remember to do it Friday morning or Friday afternoon. Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon. Make the Erev Tavshilin. Make sure the Erev Tavshilin is put away in a way that you won't eat it before. And make sure that whatever you're cooking for Shabbos on Friday is edible on Friday. So if you put up a cholent Friday morning, by the time Shabbos comes, it's edible. It might not be cholent, it might not be burnt, but it's still edible. You're cooking it for 6-7 hours, it would be edible. But you can't put up a cholent right before Shabbos. You can't make a kugel late in the afternoon. It has to be food which is edible to eat on Friday. Okay? As long as it's edible to eat on Friday, you could do it. Now, the custom is that you have now a challah with a piece of fish, let's say. So the challah you use as the second challah Friday night. And then you use it Shabbos morning, and then you eat it. You can eat it technically Friday night, and you'll be fine. But the custom is to do more mitzvahs with it. And the fish you eat Friday night, the Shabbos day, you should eat the fish and the stuff. That's an Erev Tavshilin. Okay? So the Erev Tavshilin, again, you have to have at least 2 ounces of challah or matzah, 1 ounce of a prominent food such as meat, fish, chicken, eggs, something like that. Okay, next. Candle lighting on Erev Rosh Hashanah here in LA is 6:17. Okay, days are getting earlier, it's 6:17. Now, Chabad is a very interesting custom when it comes to candle lighting and Yom and Rosh Hashanah. Most people, when they light candles on Yom Tiv, like we do by every other Yom Tiv, we say Lahadik Ner Shel Yom Tiv. On Rosh Hashanah, we do not say Lahadik Ner Shel Yom Tiv. Chabad says Lahadik Ner Shel Yom HaZikaron. It's in the Siddur, in the Chabad Siddurim. But we say not Lahadik Ner Shel Yom Tiv, but we say Lahadik Ner shows the Yom HaZikaron, and we make Kiddush. We say Shechianu. Jumping the gun because, okay, so, and the Chabad custom is, even though you could light later on Yom Tiv, Chabad custom is, like the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, we light the regular time 18 minutes before sundown, 6:17. The difference is, if you didn't, you can still light even later, as long as you light from a pre-existing flame. So our custom is we light regular time, we cover the eyes exactly like we do on a regular Shabbos. If a woman is living alone and she's making shechianu at candle lighting, she does not make a shechianu at Kiddush, because you don't make twice shechianu, it's on the Yom Tiv. Women say it at candle lighting, men say it when they make Kiddush. What happens if a woman is doing both candle lighting and Kiddush? She makes it at candle lighting. If a man lives alone and he's lighting candles, so then he makes the shechianu not by candle lighting, by Kiddush. Because Kiddush is more the man's thing and candle lighting is more the woman's thing. So the shechianu, you can also light candles on Rosh Hashanah, not all holidays. You can light candles early from Plaga Mincha on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Ma'ariv, you have, the Rosh Hashanah Ma'ariv, you have to remember for the Aser Simei Tshuva, from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur, we say HaMelech HaKodesh, HaMelech HaMishpat, Zochreinu L'chaim, Michamecha, the additions. Best thing is, look at the Siddur, follow the Siddur, and don't daydream, because then you'll see what the right things to say. After davening the first night of Rosh Hashanah, we say L'shana Tova Tikasi V'Sechasim for a man, Shana Tova Tikasevi V'Sechasemi to a woman. Now you make Kiddush. It's Kiddush of Rosh Hashanah. Again, the Shechianu, the man makes, if the woman lit, he makes, or whatever. Now, the first night of Rosh Hashanah, we have, okay, let me go into something else before this, because this is very practical and a very important aspect of Judaism. It's called food. And the day of Rosh Hashanah, we're asking God to give us a sweet year. So therefore, there is a custom in halacha, brought down in Shulchan Aruch, that we don't eat sour foods on Rosh Hashanah. Some people don't eat sour foods through, until Simchas Torah. But officially, the custom is on Rosh Hashanah, you don't eat sour foods. Some poskim write sharp foods you could eat. We also have a custom on Rosh Hashanah, we don't eat nuts. Either because nuts get stuck in your throat, and therefore it would be hard when you're davening, you're going to be going, excuse me, you're going to clear your throat the whole davening. And another reason is because egois, which is the Hebrew word for nut, equals with the word itself 17, which is the same numerical value as the word chet, which means sin. So we don't want to, even though tov also equals 17, but that's not for now. Okay, so when we cook, people don't use sour foods. For instance, in Shulchan it says the expression, you don't cook fish in vinegar. Okay, because they used to cook fish with vinegar. So the vinegar, which is very, very sour, so the fish is going to taste sour. But if somebody wants to put some lemon into a recipe, or a little that you don't taste the sourness of it, it just gives taste, but it's not something full of lemon or things like this, So then the halacha is that doesn't matter. If somebody wants to make a recipe with ground up nuts, okay, put a little bit on salmon or make a cake, whatever it is, a recipe with some ground up nuts, not a big deal. Okay, you just don't eat food which is basically sour food. That's what you don't eat. So we have the food, and that's before Yom Tov. You got to know what to cook. By the way, before Yom Tov, it's customary for men to go to the mikvah. You're supposed to cut your nails, cut your hair. If they're long, we get dressed up in Yom Tov clothing for Rosh Hashanah because we are certain Hashem is going to bless us we're certain. It says in Shulchan Aruch, the Torah brings down, we're certain God is going to bless us with a very, very good month, good year. Now, after we make Kiddush, we wash our meitzi. So then the custom is in Chabad, a lot of people have a lot of different customs. In Chabad, the first night and the first night only, we eat an apple dipped in honey. Okay, so you make.
Listen to this with you.
It's okay.
Make a bracha. You make a bracha on the apple, even though you washed and you made hametzi. So first of all, our custom is we dip the challah into honey. In addition to salt, we also use salt. We also dip the challah into salt. But first, we dip the challah into honey and we eat it. Then you could take a second piece, dip it into salt 3 times, like we do honey 3 times, salt 3 times, and then you eat it. Then our custom is we eat an apple dipped in honey. The Jewish people are likened to an apple, chakal tapuch and kaddish, holy apple orchard, and therefore apple is sweet. We eat the apple dipped in honey. So the proper procedure of this, even though we washed, but we still make a very pure eitz on the apple. So the proper way of doing the apple and honey is you cut a piece of apple, you take the apple, dip it 3 times in the honey, and then you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam berei pri ha'etz, Yiratzen l'fanacha Hashem Elokeinu sheteschadish aleinu shana tova mesukkah. Like it says in the city, you'll see it there. So we make a bracha and the yiratzen, and then we eat the apple. Okay, that's the way we do it. We also eat pomegranates. On the first night of Pesach, first night of Rosh Hashanah, because again, pomegranates have a lot of seeds. People eat foods. I know by Sephardim, they have a whole million things that they eat in a Seder. They have a whole Seder. Chabad eats the head of a fish. I mean, really, it says the head of a lamb, but we don't get head of lambs in our neighborhoods. So you eat a little piece of a head of fish. We also eat pomegranates because pomegranates have a lot of seeds. Generally speaking, like many in Ashkenazi communities, as a minhag, you eat simis. Simis is cooked carrots with it's very sweet. Why do we eat carrots? Simis, because the Yiddish word for carrots is madden. That's the Yiddish word for carrots. And madden also means to multiply a lot. So therefore, any we eat foods that basically are alluding to a lot, and like pomegranates, and should be everything should be good. So the first night and the first night only we eat the apple dipped in honey and other. Okay. In benching, you have to say Yalla V'Yavai and so on. Okay. Generally speaking, for the 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah, the previous Rebbe writes that people should dedicate their time for saying Tillim as much as possible. No idle gossip, no idle talking. People should, every spare moment, the previous Rebbe writes, you should be saying Tehillim. Some people have a minhag of finishing the whole book of Tehillim twice, because Tehillim has 150 chapters. 2 times 150 is 300. That's the numerical value of the word kaper, which means kapara. Chaperesh equals also 300. Okay. The first day of Rosh Hashanah, okay, in davening, you have Shir Amalos. I'm not going to go through the davening. You follow in the Siddur. Halal is not said on Rosh Hashanah because it's days of judgment. Okay, and then the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we go prepare ourselves for Tkir Shefer. Okay, now even though biblically women are not obligated in the mitzvah of Shefer, just like they're not obligated in Sukkah, in Lulav, in a lot of mitzvahs that are connected to time. So biblically, women are not obligated to listen to the Shefer. Nevertheless, halacha says in many, many generations already, women accepted it upon themselves to listen to Shefer. Okay? So when we blow the Shefer, okay, first of all, everybody has to be quiet. You have to listen to the 3 brachas that the person blowing Shefer says. The 2 brachas. Okay, the Shema called Shefer and Shechianu. And then you listen to the sound of the Shefer. Okay? That's all together, then we blow 30. I'm not getting into the, because we have to Yom Kippur and Sukkot to do yet. You blow 30 sounds of the Shefer. By the way, that is the obligation that women accepted upon themselves. They want to stay in shul and hear more, that's great. Then we have, but there should not be talking. First of all, when you hear the brachos of the Shefer, you should not answer Baruch Hu V'Roch Shmei. You just answer Amen and listen to the blowing of the Shefer without any talking. If you're talking middle of the mitzvah, you have a problem. So no talking, listen to the Shefer. Ideally, and this goes for the men, there should be ideally no talking until the end of the Shefer, at the end of Musaf, because the bracha that we say on Shefer goes on the whole Shefer blowing of the quiet Shemana Esrei and the repetition, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you listen to Shefer. The first day after Mincha, we go to Tashlich, to a place where there's fish, because fish are concealed from. People think that you throw your sins to the fish. That is what they call in Yiddish a baba ma'aser. It's based on a pasuk that says "V'sashlich v'msulas yom kol chateisim," that Hashem should throw into the depths of the ocean all our sins. But that when we go to Tashlich, the reason why we go to Tashlich is because fish multiply a lot, because there are a lot of blessing in fish. Why? Because they're concealed from the eye. You look at water, you see water. You don't necessarily see the fish, unless it's a small pond, you'll see fish. So fish multiply a lot because they have a bracha. So we're asking Hashem that we should be fruitful, multiplying our mitzvahs physically, spiritually, like the fish. And halachically, by the way, many people do this, but it's against halacha. Many people have a custom that they feed the fish. And the reason why they do it, by the way, is they want to show Hashem, you see, I'm kind to the animals, so be kind to me. But halachically, you're not allowed to feed animals or fish that don't belong to you. So halachically, you're not allowed to feed fish, unless they're yours. Okay. Now, what a very important din, you cannot do any preparation on Thursday for Thursday night or Friday. Like we learned before, you're not allowed to cook or prepare anything on Thursday for Friday. So you can't start cooking or heating up food until 7:17. I'm talking about LA time. 7:17, when the first day Yom Tov is over, you have the second day. You don't have to say anything after 7:17. Then you can start setting the table. You can prepare the food or do whatever you need to do. Okay, second night of Rosh Hashanah, we have candle lighting is not before 7:17 from, again, a pre-existing flame. We also make, again, the shechion. But here there's a different issue involved. There's an argument in halacha without getting into the reason. Do we make a shechionu on the second night of Rosh Hashanah? All the other Yom Tovim, everybody says the second night you make a shechionu again. But there's an argument in halacha. Do we say a shechionu on the second night of Rosh Hashanah and when we blow shofar on the second day of Rosh? Do we make a shechionu again or not? So therefore the halacha is as follows. Halachically, you do make a shechionu, but it's preferred that when you make candle lighting shechionu and kiddush shechionu, you have a new fruit or a new garment in front of you. So when the woman lights Shabbos candles, Yom Rosh Hashanah candles the second night, when she benches there should be on the table a new fruit that you need to make a shechionu on. And then when she benches licht and she says shechionu, she has in mind it also goes on the new fruit. Then the same thing when they make kiddush. Again, the husband says shechionu, he looks at the new fruit and he has in mind also the new fruit. If you don't have a new fruit or a new garment, you make shechionu anyway. Okay, but it's preferred to have a new fruit and or a new garment. Now, the second night, because we're making shechionu and we're making shechionu on the new fruit, so therefore, right after kiddush, even before we wash for hamotzi, okay, we have to eat the fruit because otherwise the shechionu, you can't delay the fruit that you made a shechionu on eating it until later. So right after kiddush, you eat the new fruit. You make a berei piyah, if that's usually what the new fruit is. You don't make a shechionu again because you made it by kiddush or candle lighting. Then you eat the shechionu fruit. How much of it do you eat? Our custom in Chabad is different opinions. Chabad custom is we eat a kazayis, an ounce of the new fruit, and we make an after bracha. Only on the fruit, nothing else. Okay. Second day Rosh Hashanah is the same as the first day, but now there's an issue. Second day is Rosh Hashanah, it's Friday, so we're going straight into Shabbos. So it's a 3-day Yom Tov. Even in Israel, by the way, Rosh Hashanah is the only Yom Tov they do both days also. So in Israel, they're not used to this, but they have a 3-day Yom Tov. Usually they have a 1-day Yom Tov, now they have a 3-day Yom Tov. 2 days of Yom Tov and Shabbos. But you have to remember if you're going into Shabbos, okay? So you have to bench licht early, not like Yom Tov, you have to bench licht early. So licht bench, let's say Friday, the third day, going into the third day Yom Tov. Here in LA is 6:14. Ma'ariv begins Mizmor LeDavid. Don't forget, it's not Yom Tov anymore. Now it's the regular Shabbos called Shabbos Shuvah. So it's a Friday night davening, except we start Mizmor LeDavid. It's a regular Friday night davening. We start from Mizmor LeDavid, goes through the Chadaydis, and it's a regular Friday night Maidav, completely. Shemon Esrei is Friday night, everything is Friday night. Kiddush is the same as every Friday night. Okay? That's it. Next. Okay, Sunday, the day after Rosh Hashanah, is what's called Same Gedalia, which is really supposed to be the day right after Rosh Hashanah. But that's a question when it was. This year, because we're going Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, so we fast Sunday. People that will be, if they fast Sunday, will have a problem fasting on Yom Kippur, should not be fasting Sunday. Shem Gedalia. So it's a really lenient fast, especially when it's pushed off maybe twice even. But technically it's a fast, so you have to fast. People that will have a problem fasting on Yom Kippur, they don't have to fast. Okay. Then you have getting into Yom Kippur a little bit. You have Erev Yom Kippur, we have Kaparis. It's a very Kabbalistic thing. It's a very strong custom to go use chickens instead of money. If you use chickens, you could do it. The best time to do it is Erev Yom Kippur. But if you have to do it a few days earlier, you could do it a few days earlier. Coming to Erev Yom Kippur, there's no Tachnun. Starting from Erev Yom Kippur in the morning, Yom Kippur this year Shabbos. Friday morning, there's no Tachnun. Thursday Mincha, before Erev Yom Kippur, there is Tachnun. But starting Friday morning, Erev Yom Kippur, there is no Tachnun through the end of Tishrei until Bais Cheshvan. Okay, so Erev Yom Kippur on, there's no Tachnun. Erev Yom Kippur, we omit Mizmah L'Seida in the Shmones, in the after Baruch Shamar, because they couldn't bring the Thanksgiving offering Erev Yom Kippur. As far as Yom Kippur is concerned, okay, that's just the basic din about Yom Kippur. There's a number of things which are forbidden on Yom Kippur. Eating and drinking, marital relations. So therefore, halachically, husband and wife have to treat each other like they would during the Nida period. You know, all the halachos, as it's called, both night and day. You're not allowed to wash yourself. And I'll explain details in a second. You're not allowed to smear yourself with perfumes, which means, and this is special on Yom Kippur, no perfume and no deodorant on Yom Kippur. Even if it's spray, whatever. There's no, it's called sicha, anointing. You can no perfume, no deodorant. You can do it before Yom Kippur if you want, but not on Yom Kippur. And last but not least, you're not allowed to wear leather shoes, which means any part of the shoe, if any part of the shoe is leather, you're not allowed to wear it on Yom Kippur. Okay, so you have to make sure you have a shoe that's completely non-leather. Now, washing, what is the din of washing that you're not allowed to do on Yom Kippur? You're not allowed to wash anything for enjoyment. So therefore, like this, when you wash even negovas in the morning, you only wash until the end of the fingers. That's it. You don't wash the whole hand. You wash until the end of the fingers. You go to the bathroom, you only wash until the end of the fingers. The only time you wash the entire hand on Yom Kippur, if somebody has to eat, okay, and they got a heter or little kids that eat, then they have to wash the full hand like they would for bread. They have to wash the whole hand. Also, when the Kohanim wash for Berachas Kohanim for Duchanin, the Leviim wash their whole hand. They wash the Kohanim's whole hand. But like this, you're only allowed to wash until the end of the fingers. Even then, you can't even, with the wet hand, you can't even wipe your eyes. You have to wait until they're damp, and then you could wipe the eyes. If they're encrusted, means there's dirt in them, then you can clean it off. Somebody has a dirt spot, they're allowed to wash it, but only that dirt spot. But you can't even put your finger into cold water, so to speak. Now, a practical din, what happens if somebody has to prepare food for kids and they have to wash the food? So then they're allowed to, again, because it's not enjoyment. They're doing it for the kids to be able to eat. But those are the 5 things which are prohibited on Yom Kippur. No eating or drinking, marital relations, smearing, washing, and no leather shoes. You can wear leather jackets, leather coats, you can wear anything, leather belts, but you can't wear leather socks, which, by the way, it means shoes, and you can't wear leather shoes. Those are basically the law of Yom Kippur. Men wear a kittel on Yom Kippur, but if they got married that year, they don't. Basically, Yom Kippur, you're in shul, basically, saying, davening what you're supposed to be davening. Okay. Now, what's also important, after Yom Kippur, this year it's Mitzvah Shabbos, but still, even though it's a regular Shabbos, we have to have a candle to do B'nai Ha'esh. We have to have a candle that was lit from before Yom Kippur, and then you can light the Havdalah candle from that. Because even though at Shabbos you do it every week anyway, but Yom Kippur, every Yom Kippur, and even when it's Shabbos, you have to do what's called an Ner Shel Shabbos. You have to light it from a pre-existing flame that was lit from before Yom. Okay. Now, again, when it comes to Sukkot, so I'm going to discuss a little bit the criteria for a kosher sukkah. If people have questions, they can always call the local Orthodox rabbi to ask what the halacha is. But the minimal size of a sukkah is, in practical language, it has to be 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim and 10 tefachim high, which means it has to be about 25 inches by 25 inches. Has to be a minimum height of like 36, 37 inches, because the tefach is between 3 and 4 inches. So the minimum height of the sukkah has to be 36 inches. The minimum length and width of the sukkah has to be, let's say, 25 inches by 25 inches. And that sometimes you have that's very relevant to understand that, because sometimes people that live in an apartment building could only make a sukkah on the balcony, and the balcony sometimes has an extension over it. You have to know how big the kosher sukkah, the area of the kosher sukkah will be, and so that's very important to know measurements. Now, the definition of a kosher sukkah is that it has 3 walls, minimum. Chabad custom is to make 4 walls. Halachically, a sukkah must have 3 walls. The 3 walls cannot be walls that blow around in the wind. Okay? They have to be walls that are firm. They have to be at least 36 inches high. The walls need to be put up before the schach is. Before the schach is put up, you have to put up the walls. If somebody built a frame, like the canvas sukkahs, right? Let's say you build a frame, and then you put on the schach, and then you put on the canvas, you don't have a kosher sukkah. The schach has to be put up after the walls are put up, at least the first time. Okay, so you have to put up the walls. Now, the walls have to be within 9 inches of each other. In other words, technically the walls should be the 3 walls should be touching each other. Okay, or the 4 walls. How much space is allowed by the wall? Not more than 9 inches. The same thing, and this is very important then, the sukkah wall has to come within 9 inches of the ground. If it's more than 9 inches off the ground, you do not have a kosher sukkah. Okay? Why am I saying this? Is very important, especially by the canvas sukkahs. By the way, you need to make sure they're tied, firmly, that they're not going to be blowing around. But I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a 10-foot frame. Okay? And then they give you an 8-foot canvas. Okay, so you have the frame, which is 10 feet high, and then they give you an 8-foot canvas. Now, if you're going to hang the canvas from the top, you're going to have 2 feet at the bottom that are not going to hit the floor, right? Because the frame is 10 and you only have 8-foot canvas. So you're not going to have a kosher sukkah. What you have to do is put the canvas all the way down to the floor or within 9 inches of the ground. Then, even though on top you have 2 feet empty space, that doesn't matter. Because halachically, once you have a kosher wall that's just 10 tvachim, halachically, once you have that, the wall keeps, halachically, an imaginary halachic wall just keeps going up. So let's say, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, this is probably clear. So this is the wall, okay, and your schach is going to be Something's going to work. Okay. So you have the wall, and then you have the schach here on top. As long as you have a 36-inch wall, which you have more in this case, right? You have 8 feet. As long as the schach is over the wall, that if the wall would continue going up, it would hit the schach, you have a kosher sukkah. If it would be this way, with 2 feet open at the bottom, it would not be a kosher sukkah. So the wall of the sukkah has to be firm. The wall of the sukkah has to come within 9 inches of the ground. Up, it obviously it's best to hit but halachically it doesn't have to hit the schach. Now, when you put the schach, if you have a wall and you have the schach, okay, ideally the schach should go over the wall. But what happens if it's not hitting the wall? It's a little bit off the wall. As long as it's within 9 inches of the wall, it's kosher. If it's 13 inches off the wall, it's not a kosher schach. It's not a kosher. So again, it's very important when you build a sukkah, you can't build a sukkah under a tree. You build a sukkah under a tree, there's a lot of problems with that. Okay? So you have to know, the laws of building a sukkah. Even if you buy a finished sukkah, but you still need to know how that it should be put up in a way that is 100% kosher. You can't put a sukkah under a tree. You can't. Now, what happens, here's another practical din, by the way. Let's say this is the house wall, okay? But there's an overhang over the, outside the house, many walls out in the backyard, right? So there's an overhang either from the floor on top or whatever it is. But I want to use this house wall as one of the walls of the sukkah. Okay? So the law is like this. If this protrusion, if this extension is less than 6 feet, and I put schach all around the rest of the sukkah, if it's less than 6 feet, I can count the house wall as one of the walls of the sukkah. But if it's more than 6 feet away, I cannot count it as a sukkah, as a wall of the sukkah. I'm going to need 3 other walls. And this is very practical, by the way, because people in their backyard, or even in their front, in New York, they make them on the front porches. But even then, you have overhangs, or people from on top, So let's say you were building a sukkah on a porch. Okay, you want to build a sukkah on a porch, but there's an overhang, So again, as long as you have 25 inches by 25 inches of space on the open area, and you put schach over that, you can still count the house wall as one of the walls as long as it's less than 6 feet. Okay, that's a very practical din that people need to keep in mind when it comes to building the sukkah. Okay, other dinim about the sukkah, which are very practical. The first night of Sukkot, which is this year again. So don't forget, Wednesday before Sukkot, you need to make an Erev Tavshilin. Erev Sukkot, Wednesday night. Okay, I'm not going to get into preparation of the lulav. If we have time, we're going to discuss that. But the sukkah has to be ready, by the way, before Yom Tov starts. You can't put up schach on Yom Tov. You're doing construction on Yom Tov, which is forbidden. The sukkah has to be up, the lights have to, everything has to be up. Now, there's a biblical obligation on men, not women, to eat in the sukkah on the first night. Even if it's pouring rain, you have to eat a kazayis in the sukkah. Chabad custom men, not women. Women don't have to eat in the sukkah. They can definitely eat whatever they want in the house. I mean, women like to eat in the sukkah. If they eat in the sukkah and they eat enough that would demand the bracha, What did it mean? I don't know what that means. Well, somebody wrote a note. I haven't the faintest idea what it means. Sorry. So now there's a mitzvah teaching this. Now, Chabad custom is men don't even drink water outside of the sukkah for the duration through Shmini Atzeres. And even if it's pouring in California, Baruch Hashem, we have a problem of heat. But even when it's pouring, as they say, the expression cats and dogs, in Chabad, we don't eat anything or drink anything out of the sukkah. We go into the sukkah even if it's raining. But so the first night of sukkah is it's mandatory for men to eat in the sukkah. Now there's a process. The first night, I'm going to say the order is Bari Piagafen, the Brach of Kiddush. The first night, Leishe Basukah, and then Shechianu. Second night, we do Shechianu first, and then Leishe Basukah. Okay, but again, you look in the Siddur, it's all written in the Siddur. If you go online to jewishbeverlyhills.com in a few days, the Chabad halacha newsletter will be out. You have most of these dinim that we're talking about tonight. Now, again, in Sukkot, we dip the challah in honey 3 times, just like we did on Rosh Hashanah. Erev Yom Kippur, we use honey. Matzah Yom Kippur, we use honey. The other times, as they say, yeah, no. The Rebbe writes, yeah, no. Okay, so now let me discuss some dinim of sukkah as far as food goes. And this applies again. Women have no obligation to sit in the sukkah, so whatever they want to eat outside of the sukkah, they can. Again, Chabad custom is we don't eat or drink anything out of the sukkah, not even water. The Rebbe Rashabi wanted to take medicine. He went into the sukkah to take his medicine that he took. And nothing out of the sukkah. Okay? In fact, it's an interesting thing. Halacha says, whoever eats in the sukkah, when it's raining, it's called a simpleton. And Chassidim, they would say, I'd rather be called a simpleton and still not eat outside of the sukkah. But we don't. But what mandates a person? Because it's very important to know. If somebody's eating dinner in the sukkah, do you make a leishev basukah? Now, when do we make a leishev basukah? During Sukkot. Besides the first 2 nights. And the meals during the day when you're washing for bread. The only time you make a leishev basukah during the rest of Yom Tov, if you're eating 2 ounces of bread or 2 ounces of cake. That's practical halacha. Somebody can eat, technically, a 5-course dinner. You can have fish and salad. You can have chicken soup without the matzah ball because that's mezainis. Without the matzah ball. You can have a prime rib with potatoes and a side dish. Okay? And you can have ice cream and another 20 types of desserts that don't have cake in them. And you don't make a leishev basukah. Why don't you make a leishev basukah? Because leishev basukah you can only make when you're obligated to eat the meal in the sukkah, so then you can make a bracha. He commanded us to eat in the sukkah. But if you're not commanded to eat in the sukkah, how can you make a bracha leishev basukah? So this din is important even for Chabad people that don't eat anything out of the sukkah, but we need to know when am I able to make a bracha leishev basukah. Now, that's din number 1. So the only time you make a leishev basukah is if you're drinking, if you're eating cake or bread or so on. Our custom also is to bench lulav in the sukkah. Men bench lulav in the sukkah. But now another thing. What happens if a person eats some breakfast, okay, and he made let's say he was washing and he made a leishev basukah. And then he's going to eat lunch at 1 o'clock, 3-4 hours later. And he's going to again eat bread. So then you have to make a new leishev basukah. If it's more than 2 hours later, you have to make a leishev basukah. If it's less than 2 hours and you knew you were coming back, then you don't make a leisha b'sukkah. What happens though? I'll give you a simple example. You finished eating dinner, you washed, you made a leisha b'sukkah, you're fine. You're going into the house, that's it. And all of a sudden, a friend comes and says, hey, let's have a fabrani. Okay? And you're going to have mashke with cake, 2 ounces of cake. So even if it's 5 minutes later, you have to make a new leisha b'sukkah. Why? Because when you left the sukkah, in your mind, you're not coming back to it. If you had in mind you're coming back, so it's up to 2 hours, you don't have to make, it's good for those 2 hours. But if you think I'm leaving and I'm not going back, so then you have to make a new leisha b'sukkah even 5 minutes later. Or another case, what happens if you do what's called sukkah hopping? One guy's out, say l'chaim with some cake, and another guy's out, l'chaim, and you're eating 2 ounces of cake in each place. So the din is, even though I know I'm going sukkah hopping, but the fact that it's a different sukkah mandates a new bracha leisha b'sukkah. So again, in your own house, if you know you're coming back and you coming back within 2 hours, you don't make a new leisha b'sukkah. More than 2 hours later, you do. If you left the sukkah and you thought you're not coming back, and then you changed your mind, you have to go back. The new leisha b'sukkah. If you're going from sukkah to sukkah, again, every sukkah demands its own leisha b'sukkah. Okay? That's as far as the brachas of sukkah. The davening of sukkah is, halo, complete halo with the, okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about lulav and esrog. There's a biblical mitzvah for men, because again, it's connected to time. On the first day of Yom Tiv, is biblical to do the bracha and the lulav and esrog. So the way the custom is, you have the lulav with the adasim and aravis, the 2 types of branches on it, the willow and the myrtle, and then you have the esrog. Now, we learned the din, you have to make a bracha before you do the mitzvah. Once you do the mitzvah, you can't make a bracha anymore. So, when you're doing the bracha of lulav and esrog, first of all, it says in halacha, you get up early, the first day, to make a bracha early on the lulav and esrog. Rabbi Yosef was up a whole night. Sukkot, the first day, he was waiting. He missed the mitzvah so much. He was literally up a whole night, kept looking when is day breaking, when can he already do the mitzvah. By the way, after Sukkot was over, Rabbi Yosef was also up a whole night waiting to do the mitzvah of tefillin again, because you don't wear tefillin for 9 days in Sukkot. So he couldn't wait to do the mitzvah of the tefillin, so he would be up a whole night after Simchas Torah. So our custom is like this. Men do it in the sukkah. Okay? So you hold the lulav in your right hand because that has 3 things on it. The esrog is only 1. Okay? So if you're a right-handed person, you hold the lulav in your right hand. You make the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvayso v'tzivanu al netilas lulav. The first time you do it, but it's important. If a guy didn't do it for the first 3 days, you meet a guy in the street to bench lulav on the 3rd day, 4th day, so he makes a shechionu because he didn't do it yet that Yom Tov. So then when you start saying the shechionu, we take the esrog. Okay, so we're holding the lulav in the right hand, and we make the bracha, the first bracha, on the tilas lulav. Then we pick up the esrog while we're starting to say the shechionu. And we say shechionu v'kimanu v'giyanu l'zman hazeh, and when you finish the bracha, you touch them together and you shake it. Okay, men do all the shakes in all directions. Women usually, generally speaking, don't. They just hold the lulav and esrog together. Why? And the rest of Yom Tov, starting after the first day. The second day on Shabbos, we don't bench lulav. But again, we hold the lulav in our right hand. We make the bracha on the tilas lulav. Then when we finish the bracha, we take the esrog and put it to the lulav and we shake a little. A person who's left-handed holds the lulav in their left hand. Okay, because by them, that's their stronger hand. That's the right hand halachically. It's called Yamin Shalei. He's called his right hand. The stronger hand is the right hand. If a person's ambidextrous, by the way, you hold it like everybody else in the right hand. But if you're completely left-handed, then you write with your left. You throw with you're left-handed person. You do you hold the lulav in the left hand. As far as the dinim of Sukkot, again, you can't do any preparation from the first day for the second night. You know, Sukkot, you can be having 100 guests, but you still cannot set the tables. You cannot prepare. You cannot do anything. No cooking, no warming until the first night of Yom Tov is over. Which this year in LA, will be no preparations allowed until 6:59, 7 o'clock basically. That's when the first day ends and the second day begins. Second night Sukkot, okay. Then you have Chol HaMoed, which by the way, halachically, you should eat. It's an interesting halacha. According to many opinions, it's even biblical, unless you don't like it. But every day of Yom Tov, including Chol HaMoed, there's a mitzvah to eat meat and wine. There's a mitzvah, according to many people, biblical, by the way, to eat meat and wine every day. Chicken, if you don't want meat, you can have chicken. If you don't like either of them, you can have fish. But there's actually a dinner of a Yom Tov to eat wine and meat every day of Yom Tov because you have to be happy and those things make a person happy. Chol HaMoed, also customary is in Shulchan Aruch, it says, you wear Shabbos clothing on Chol HaMoed. It's a Yom Tov. It's called Chol HaMoed, but it's not Chol, it's Moed. It's just, you're allowed to do things. It's Chol of the Moed, but it's really Moed. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, when it says, one who embarrasses the holidays, even though he might be very learned, he has no cheluk in Olam Haba. The commentators of the Mishnah say it means Chol HaMoed, not Yom Tov. If you embarrass the Yom Tov, so ideally, unless if a person has to, then people should try not to work. Chol HaMoed, b'chlal, you should know it's a lot of interesting things. You can't cut your hair at Chol HaMoed unless if you weren't allowed to cut it before Chol HaMoed, like you get out of prison, or an upsherinish whose kid's birthday is Chol HaMoed Sukkot, so the first days of Sukkot, he could do an upsherinish on Sukkot. If his birthday was before Sukkot, he cannot do an upsherinish on the Chol HaMoed. But Chol HaMoed, people really should avoid writing. People should avoid shopping. I'm not talking about food. People should avoid shopping. People should avoid doing a lot of things that people do Chol HaMoed. Chol HaMoed is a time to spend with the family doing things. In fact, there's a whole question in halacha, discussed in halacha, are you allowed to take family pictures on Chol HaMoed? So technically the answer is no, because Chol HaMoed, you're not supposed to be writing and taking pictures and all that. The codifiers, the poskim write that if that's the time the family's together, and therefore it's the only time you can take it, and if you don't take it, you lose the opportunity, so then you're allowed to take pictures. I'm just saying people should not minimize the importance of what Chol HaMoed is, especially Chol HaMoed Sukkot, the Simcha Beit She'eva. People should be happy the whole Sukkot and dancing and freilach and be very happy. Okay, I know we covered everything short and sweet, but that's the dinam of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. I just want to mention like this. This coming Monday will be a class. Then there's no class until after Simchas Torah. But please listen. After Simchas Torah, the classes are going back to 8 o'clock. And Emir Tashem, the way it stands now, There will be the Zoom class, but we're also going to have the class in person. So we're going to have a class in Shul because we're planning to make an evening kollel for people to come at night for an hour, hour and a half, just to learn themselves or with somebody else, just to, to be in Shul to learn. And the classes will be held in Shul. It's still going to be on Zoom. So whoever can't make it to Shul will still be able to watch it on Zoom. And the classes are moving back up to 8. So that's it for now. I want to wish everybody a Ksiva Chasima Teva. Monday we'll still see you, hopefully. But this Shabbos, don't forget, Saturday night we begin saying Slichas. Everybody should be blessed with a Ksiva Chasima Teva, a good year, a healthy year. We should only hear good news. Should be peace all around the world. Everybody should be healthy, wealthy, and
Amen.
Everybody should have abundance of atzlacha and health and parnasa and nachas. And there's one issue that will solve all the issues, and that's called the coming of Mashiach.
Amen.
Amen.
Take care.
Thank you.